streams to see exactly when it connected because I
Mhm.
so welcome. We are all synced and ready to go. Thank you so much for joining me today, Deb, for our conversation. Two communication nerds having a chat.
I love it, love it, love it. Oh, I didn't even put my microphone down. Oh my
There-
gosh.
That is much better. I'm going to say that. And that reminds me that I need to go in and check that. Okay, it is going through the correct microphone. So on that note, before we even do introductions, we're just going to say if you're tuning into this today, we're in Pharaoh's season right now, the starseed community, those us wooey people that love like cosmic energies. We are literally in the cosmic blueprint right now of our relationship with technology. And all of that energy is coming up to be put forth and questioned. So if we have wonkiness and flickers and microphone problems, it is an invitation for all of us to just respect the technology for what it does provide while acknowledging it is imperfect.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
us.
yeah.
So, Deb, please go ahead and just introduce yourself for anyone who is watching this who doesn't know who you are.
Absolutely. Hello, I'm Deb. Thanks, Safrianna, first of all, for having me with you today. This is
Absolutely.
exciting. I love talking with you. This is so fun. I'm the founder of Hold Hearing Out Life Drama, and it's a confidential listening service that is all about active listening. So I teach active listening, and I also listen to people who need someone further outside their family, friends, or coworkers to simply hear them. So that's
Yeah.
who I am and what I do.
Yes, and obviously, like Deb knows, I'm a super fan of her, and everything you put out there is just such good. Like I am a communication nerd. Like I went to school. I was an English, an English graduate, taught
Same.
English for years, and then went on to be a therapist and study communication and community mental health. So I love that you have literally made your mission teaching people how to listen to one another. Like it's so important. I can't even emphasize how important it is. So I love not only that it's your mission, but that you're just genuinely such a cool person and we can have really meaningful conversations. So thank you.
Yeah, that's really big. I love that you welcome it into your life and you practice it and I think that as we model it for other people, it comes back to us in our lives. And only 2% of people in our nation have ever had active listening training. That's a mind blowing. That's mind blowing. That's according to listen.org.
2%.
2%. Yeah. How many of those are actually therapists?
Uh Not all
Mm,
of them. I will say that, not all of them, but some of them, yeah.
yeah.
Oh man, I have so many things to say about, me leaving. So in case you're watching this and you don't know me, I'm Safrianna Luna, the Queer Spirit Guide. I'm visionary CEO for Living Luna, and my mission is to truly make the world an inclusive place for everyone, and to do so through teaching skills such as listening, and self development, spiritual development, holistic health, so all of us can thrive and have good lives. I believe that is entirely possible. And I just retired as a therapist to go what I'm doing. And I cannot tell you, Deb, how many clients came to me when I was a therapist and went, No one's ever listened to me the way you do. This other therapist I had would just like give me their opinion and not listen to me. But you listen and then sometimes you'll reflect back but they just didn't listen. And I'm like, "Oh, no." Like, there is an epidemic even within the therapy community that is part of what I wanna talk about in the
I'm
world.
stressed now.
I know, of active listening skills are not taught as most counselor education. Yes, Aria just said, and I hope I said that right. Wow, I did not realize listening was such a rare skill. It
It is though.
truly,
It is.
truly is. So tell me
Yeah.
more about that, Deb. Like, how did you find the statistic? Tell me about the stress experience you're having right now. I'm here for you.
So I found the statistic actually in a book I was reading. It's called The Listening Shift. It's written by a woman in the UK, I believe. Her name is Janie Van Hool. The Listening Shift is the title of her book, and she mentions the statistic in her book. I'm still working my way all the way through it. Really, really good book. And it's stressful for me to think about therapists not listening. And I mean, I've been through my own therapy journey, and I just think that's important for everyone. But even more, I would really love it for people all over the world to have people in their lives to hear them.
Right.
Just listen. That matters so much, and to know that
Yeah.
we're not even doing it well in therapy offices, that's ugh,
And it's
a
the
lot.
truth. And, it's part of my mission, again, is to bring sort of awareness to these facts
Yeah,
rather than bypassing it. Because, of course, we would assume that therapists are like the sort of the poster child for listening,
yeah,
right? That's people I've heard say about therapy, like, well, I'm not going to pay someone just to listen to me, which sometimes we do, right? We need support, and people around us aren't trained in how to listen. So we go to try and find a trained professional. But part of what's wrong in the therapy community is to me, okay, this is very much my opinion,
mhm.
is sometimes the focus, especially because insurance companies get involved, the focus on there is a diagnosis that we have to fix, which implies that simply by having someone ideally that listens, things are going to be fixed. And we need to do this in a timely manner so we can take off the diagnosis code and move them on. And that was a big problem for me as someone who I was taking insurance for a while. I worked in an agency where we were told that we got 8 sessions with the clients. And that was barely enough to start diving into the trauma history. So it was a lot of listening, but then you also couldn't get to fully know the person. So it was like we were just not being given the tools to do real listening in a way that can just receive them when they need so much help. And yeah, so it's kind of a mess. It's
These
kind of
people
a
don't
mess.
even understand. I'm jumping in against my own thing here. Oh my gosh, my brain is exploding. The Therapeutic Alliance doesn't even form until the sixth appointment.
Yeah.
It and you get eight. Like, mm,
Yeah, it was like I couldn't work that way and do the kind of work I needed to do. And I was actively listening. So I was seeing all the, okay, we need to, like, this is something that's going to need to be worked on, and like pulling all these threads, but we need time to be able to do that. Now, what you do with Hold, that I'm like, okay, that's really genius. And like, that's so important to have, is like what Hold is really appropriate for is the I just need to vent to somebody about this thing that ticked me off today. It's not like the trauma. It's not the I need 16
exactly.
sessions to process this. It's like this happened and there's no one in my life today that can like do this with me. Um, Aria, I bring active listening to every conversation, friends, family, and clients, presence and acceptance instead of fixing. Yeah. And that's what Hold does. Like you're focusing on the listening in
Exactly.
it. But yeah, like that's an important component to do the deeper work, which is something that therapists need more training on.
Yeah.
Teachers need more training on. Medical practitioners need more training on.
Yeah.
This is your mission.
That's my mission. Just it's so simple and yet it's so profound. We don't give advice unless we're asked in any appointment. We're simply there to hold space and to actively listen through whatever it is people need to get out, and so they can get on. When you get it out, you can move on, and that's just it's a really powerful thing. Listening is.
Yeah. And to really see another person in who they are and what they're showing up with. So I just got back from Montana. I went out there to study with Body of Nine. And I can't remember how much you and I have talked about Body of Nine so far, but it is this system of understanding of the human body vessel, or the body filtration system. So the actual model of body that we are in, and how that determines how we communicate with others in the world, how our body informs how we make connection, how we use our eyes to connect, how we see our sort of body spirit relationship. And there's 9 different types of bodies. And something that I've learned about myself that was finally so affirming to hear, was that I, as a natural number 9, when I'm truly listening, my listening ears are on and I'm fully taking things in, my face is like completely passive. My My cheeks are soft, my eyes are soft, my eyes look kind of fuzzy, my vision goes fuzzy. And
Mm,
that is the way natural number 9 bodies take in information. So because I can communicate that now, people, because this was something that happened all the time as a therapist, and as a therapist it felt so weird to bring myself into the room.
mhm.
I didn't like that, because it got into weird ethical lines, and again, I could vent about that for days. That's why I left. But now I'm like, I feel so empowered to say, like, if I'm listening to you, and obviously when I'm doing live streams and stuff, like, I feel a little zhuzh on my face, right? That's because Gene, with all kinds of people that need that. But if I'm listening and I am taking all of you in, you're gonna think I'm not paying attention. Now, on all 7 out of the other 9 total natural numbers, if they had a blank face, that means they're not listening. Especially if they're a 1 through a 4, because 1 through 4s require eye contact to make connection, to be able to listen and take information in if it's being shared by another person. So that's even interesting to think about, like, what are the modes of communication in which we're listening? Because some people are gonna thrive with just over the phone.
Yes.
We'll need like this where we can kind of see each other and kind of see body language, and maybe not necessarily make eye contact because we're kind of looking at each other. But if you're on a one to one and you're just connecting with the person on the other side of the screen, you can kind of like look into the camera and look and do that. But when you're live streaming, it's different. But like those are things about listening that, I never even realized until I started to study Body of Nine, like what different things and different facial expressions and modalities mean for different people with different body filter systems.
That would be really interesting to explore.
It would.
In depth, yeah, 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 I can see how you got lost in that for sure.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
that's part of what we've been studying in this work, is like how natural number 1 makes soft receptive eye contact by tilting their chin up, and their eyes go soft and they gaze deeply into your soul, and there is no connection on earth like that.
Mm,
Whereas like if a natural number 2 looks at you and you make eye contact, their eyes sparkle and they smile at you. It's instant. And these are like the different kinds of activation that physically happen when we're listening. So there's a lot of conventional wisdom even about body language. Like, I'm wondering, can you say something about this? Like, what is your understanding of the difference between active listening and really listening for something versus reading someone's body language and judging and assuming what you're hearing or what you're seeing in the way they're presenting?
well, ideally, you hope those match up. I Ideally, they match up, and I think the biggest thing for me is when they don't. As a listener, some people might be using words that are soothing and calming, but their body language is saying something entirely different, which means they're not connected inside themselves. And so, if I, as a listener, can help them to bring that together and say, something that might ease that. And
Mhm.
and if they're not ready to go there, of course we're not going to go there. But if we could, we might. I think that's one thing that's important. Um, Body language is so important in listening. It really, really is, because when those messages line up, the
Mhm.
communication's powerful.
Right. Yeah, and so that's where I want more people to understand that there are 9 different types of body language that actually mean different things.
Mhm.
And it's something that we can start to learn by getting curious. What does this mean? Like, even if you never study Body of Nine as a system and what it teaches, you can still start to get curious about people. What does this mean for them? Right? Because natural number 3, for example, they activate through the smile. They're the only number that activates through the smile. And so, because of that, even when they're sad, they'll smile because they're activating themselves in it. Versus, yeah, for the rest of us, if we're smiling and we're crying, like you can feel the energetic, like, oh, something's wrong here. Like they're masking or they're hiding something. So you can really approach something, and that's something that active listening gives you, is the skill of curiosity. Like,
Yeah.
what are they saying here? What are the layers in this?
One of the things that I particularly teach is that if when you're listening, it really needs to start with you. And so paying attention to your own body language when you're with somebody is really key. So if you find yourself wanting to move, that's a really good cue for you that, hey, I might not be staying calm in this conversation. I might need to hit the pause button and take a break. If you're not able to really maintain that eye contact, if you're finding yourself needing to do something else, then those are indicators.
Yeah. Yeah, and that is true, and we know this in our study of the natural numbers, like, that's true of all people, whether they do connect with eye contact or not. Even the people that do connect with eye contact will hit a limit
Hmm.
and will disengage from eye contact, usually as, like, I'm full. I
Me?
ooh, too full.
Yeah,
It's a good indicator, right? And
really
then there are
good.
some people that literally we don't like my sister and I, we're an 8 and a 9, and we don't have to look at each other. Like, we do, we'll check in with each other, but, like, we don't have to be sitting there making eye contact the whole time to feel deeply connected and, like, enjoying an activity together.
Mhm,
But then you put 2 eye contact people together side by side, they're gonna feel like, "What are we doing here?" There's no relationship because they establish their relationship through eye contact. So that's just an interesting again, like, there's so much to learn about communication.
mhm.
There's so many layers to peel back.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love that you found the body of 9 to really explore that further. I think it's a beautiful thing. To be honest, I don't know that much about it.
That we're trying
Other
to
than
change that, but yeah.
yeah, yeah, other than what I've seen you post on your Facebook wall, maybe some information there. It's certainly something that I keep thinking, oh, maybe someday I'll take a deep dive.
Yeah, I mean, that's the cool thing. I love archetype systems. Again, I'm a nerd and I love breaking things down into acronyms and frameworks and like archetypes, like all these different ways to understand things. So I of course love astrology and human design, and like I love that hold is an acronym. And then we did a podcast with Deb with Ikenna on it as well. So go listen to that where we break down Deb's framework for active listening, and it was excellent, like great framework. And so I'm a super nerd about all of these things, but body of 9 is like one of those things that you don't actually have to go super deep, like astrology, for example, to like know what the heck you're talking about. Because astrology, right? Like you've got your sun sign, your moon sign, your rising sign, your planets, your houses, your this and that. And I'm like, this is awesome for me to understand me, but good lord, I would take me like 17 hours of study per person in my life to really know anything about them from that. And I'd rather just get to know them like that. Whereas body of 9 is like, okay, there's 9 types of bodies. Eye contact, not so necessary eye contact. Body based, energy based. And then there's some key components, like key ways they show up in the world and ways we can support them. And we can kind of master that in like a day or two workshop. So it's not like to get a little taste of it, you don't have to go on like I need to take a degree in this or study it for a year. And that's what I liked about it and why it made me more curious is because I learned my number and my wife's number. That was all I started with. And our communication instantly improved, instantly, because we understood what different things in our bodies meant and how to be empowered in our body when we went into communication.
Mhm, mhm.
And then I was like, okay, tell me more. And then we went to a workshop to learn the basics. And then I got my family identified. Now I'm learning and teaching it. Just like you're like, oh, wow, I learned how to listen and get curious. And I'm making so many more better relationships now, and my communication's improving. So again, this is just one framework to kind of look at that in, but it's a little bit more succinct than a lot of the very esoteric stuff that's out there.
When I was early on in my training, I did Myers-Briggs, and
Mhm.
that framework for me, I feel like for me, that might be comparable to the body of 9 that you're experiencing just in terms of how I use that in my mind.
Mhm.
It sounds very similar. It's kind of my party trick. I'll be out with with a group of people, and in 5 minutes I can tell them what their Myers-Briggs is, and they're like, "Wait, how'd you do that?"
Yeah, it is an archetype system in that way. What's so
Yeah.
different about it versus because I love Myers-Briggs too. I'm like, that was actually my gateway to archetype systems. Truly, Myers-Briggs. and I am an INFJ that teeters into ENFJ once in a while. I'm like right there on the EI line. And yeah, that's a great framework because we can say extrovert, introvert, this, that, and you can kind of put together a person.
Mhm.
But you can take a quiz for that and you can kind of shift in and out of that. And what's so interesting in this is it is physically based in the body.
Mm.
So you can't take a quiz for it. I mean, we could probably develop a pretty accurate quiz, but it's so funny. I had worked with a client for a really long time and I thought he was a natural number two. He wanted to be a natural number two. He came and was identified. Turns out he was a natural number one. As soon as they were like, we think you're a natural number one, and they started running the traits. I went, oh, that makes sense, and he went, oh, that makes sense. Versus when we get in our head and we have this view of ourselves
Mhm.
that sometimes we're bypassing some things. Sometimes we're not really even listening to ourselves because we can fib a little on a quiz. But the body and having someone else reflect back what they see is where we can really start to get into, like, you can tell people what their Myers-Briggs is because you have an objective view when you're looking at them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, do you know the concept of the Johari window? Because that's exactly what you're talking about. It's a framework of a window, and it's four different quadrants, and it's the part of you that you can see, the part that other people can see, and so it lays it out. It just sparked in my head when you said that. I just think that's so true. Sometimes there are parts that in that Johari window other people can see that we miss in ourselves. Yeah.
And I love getting support from other people because, and this was such a fun thing for me. So as a natural number 9, my center of power is actually back here. It's in between my shoulder blades. Yeah, see how easy it is for me to just do that? That's because my body is, I have this unique flatness and my shoulders roll down and back more than any other body type. Um, I'm literally my blind spot, right? That's where you can't really see on your own body. And so that metaphorically, I was like, oh, I'm my own blind spot. And then I like that, and that just that self-awareness, it like made me even more eager to receive help. And so even though literally we're all our own blind spots, and that beautiful metaphor just expanded my mind, I hope it can expand some others too, because that is, we're so close to our stuff sometimes,
Yeah.
and that's where the active listening comes in, when you, Deb, or your team or a therapist or a coach or whoever that is applying that active listening skill is fully seeing you in front of them or hearing you, taking you in, and able to see through some of the gaps of like, I'm in the story, I'm in the this, I'm in the that, and they're just actively, wow, I'm hearing this, I'm witnessing this in you right now, and able to reflect that back. To be witnessed is so powerful.
Witnessed and then validated. Take it even further. Ooh, and then it gets really, really good. Witnessed and then because the validation is really where people know, ooh, you you saw me and you heard and understood me. That's so
Yeah.
powerful. Mm.
Yeah, and like that's something that I feel like, and I always feel radical when I say this and I shouldn't. Um but I'm the kind of person that, like, when people try to argue with me about people with different political opinions than them and how those are awful people and they're wrong and bad because they think this, I'm like, but they're not wrong and bad. They're traumatized and they've never had someone say, hey, that really scares you. Why does that scare you so much? Where's that stemming from? Tell me about that. Wow, wow. I could understand why you were really afraid of that kind of person because of that experience. Would it be helpful to you to reach out to other people like that and see that they're not all like that and begin to process and heal that? Like, every awful person out there is just a person who had another awful person do something awful to them, and it's just this chain reaction, and it takes genuine compassion to stop that train.
Yeah. Mr. Rogers the world. You're Mr. Rogers. You're doing it too. I love it. That's so beautiful. I just I feel the same way. Everybody just needs that love. Somebody said that to me actually this earlier this week. They're like, Deb, I don't quite understand how you can look at everybody like you do and find the good. And when you take, and it's exactly what you just described, it's when you take that step back and you understand that they started from somewhere that wasn't a good place, and that's
Everyone was
how
a
they got there.
cute little baby at some point.
Yes,
A
there you
cute
go.
little baby who had never done a bad, awful thing in their life, and then generational trauma, societal trauma, right? Our legacy burdens, there they are. And about 6 years old, we start to just take all of that in
Yeah.
and install it because that's the only thing all we know to do biologically when we're that young is to just soak up what's around us. That's what we're meant to do. So if we're not soaking up love and compassion and curiosity and play and freedom, then it doesn't go so well for us.
But it
We have a long journey home.
we have a long journey home, yes, and I just wanna extend some hope out there, because if somebody just
Yeah.
listened to that and they thought, "Oh my god, how do I get back to that?" That part can be scary, because if that's where
Yes.
you're at, that's a really I've been there.
Same.
I know that journey, you know that journey, but let's make sure we leave people with a sense of it's okay and you can, and
Absolutely.
you don't, even though that was lost, it doesn't have to be lost forever, and
Exactly.
there's hope. Don't give up. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, I just did a live stream the other day, literally sharing my whole story because I'm like, I'm just gonna shine the truth of my story so that other people know it is possible to experience awful things. Awful things. Like, we're gonna admit awful things,
Awful
awful
things.
experiences
Yeah.
from people who were not in alignment. Not from awful people, but from people who were also traumatized and they unfortunately passed it on. And when we are like, okay, let me first heal me, right? And come into me and my self love, even though I experienced these awful things, I love and accept myself. And then that is the magical key to, and now I can begin to love and accept other people. But if we're judging ourselves for the bad things that happened, that's where we lose the hope. So, yes, have the hope that you can love yourself. And like, that's what I'm here for, literally, is to share the story of like the dark lack of hope and then the light at the end of the tunnel. Like, that's literally what I'm doing in the world now, is just showing that as an
Shine.
example.
Shine the light. Atta girl.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah.
it is crazy that I didn't know what like compassion or unconditional love was until I had a therapist, and I wrote about this in my chapter that I read. Like, I didn't know that was even a possible thing to receive from another person or myself until this other adult sat down in a therapy room who I was paying to listen to me. And she did. She had the active listening skills. Let me say that. She really did. And I always tell people, if you're not feeling a good fit with a therapist or a coach or a listener, don't work with them again. That's okay.
Right?
That's totally okay. We shop around, like, we don't just befriend the person down the street and tell them our deepest, darkest secrets, right? We want to shop around. So it's okay to wait to find somebody really that fits with you. But she just was this outpouring of love to me. And I went, oh, that feels different. I've never experienced that before. And that showed me it was possible. And so now I'm like, let's just show it's possible by being it. That's the most impactful thing I can do. And that's what you do, Deb. Like, I see you
Yeah.
all the time, just being this. I love what you share about listening and the importance of it, and how you are just able to so beautifully articulate the power, the magic of listening.
It is kind of magical, isn't it? It's so simple. Everybody thinks, "Oh, I should know this." I mean, they told me to do that in kindergarten. I've been doing it my whole life. But the fact is there's so much more than just sitting down and closing your mouth. There's so much more even than making eye contact, or there's so much more to it. And when you really dive in and allow yourself permission to let your truth be yours, and someone and the other person's truth be theirs, and all of that magic that it's life transforming, and most people
Yes.
don't realize how life transforming it can be. So yeah. Okay.
Yes.
There goes
I
Deb.
I no, I feel like this is the perfect communication nerds chat. Like,
It was aptly
perfect.
named. It was
Yes.
completely
So, as I said, we do have a Living Luna's podcast episode with Deb in season 2. So go find it and listen to it if you want like the actual this is a framework for active listening because I think it was brilliant what you shared. And Deb, you also do courses on so many good topics for like having harmony and communication and home space and things like that. So if you enjoyed this conversation today, whether you caught it live or in the replay, you can find Deb on my page somewhere. Or you can find me on Deb's page somewhere because we're the kind of people who love to uplift each other and genuinely like give a shout out to the people that are doing good stuff in the world right now. So thank you so
and you
much for this,
are,
Deb.
and you really are, and you really, really are.
Thank you. So, this was so much fun. I hope everyone that did tune in got something today. I got something out of this conversation. I hope you did as well, Deb. And
Yeah, of course.
until next time, bye